I appreciate you guys being here, being on time. And inshallah, we'll always start right on time. Jazakallah khair for I hope Saturday went well. Inshallah, I want to go over a couple of things with you guys before we start our session for today. So a couple of things that were really important that I wanted to discuss. So first, there was a room change, obviously. So we're going to try to be in this room from now on. I mean, let's see how comfortable it is, but I think it's a bit more lively and more light. And we're probably going to be here. So we'll stick in here, inshallah, for the next couple sessions, unless something else happens, or if you guys feel a lot of discomfort. Second is, there was a lot of people asking me if we can change the time, particularly Monday. So I realized that we made 5 to 7, and then last lead was 6 to 8. So I would like to take everybody's opinion, maybe when the room fills up a little bit, but we're going to vote on if 6 to 8 is better than 5 to 7. If you guys are okay with that, I don't mind moving. But if there isn't like a majority vote, I'm going to keep it whatever we marketed initially, because that's what everybody signed up for. Okay? Same thing, people asked about Saturdays, maybe can we make it a little later? I could put that up to the vote also, but if there isn't a majority, I'll keep it the way we marketed it initially to everybody, because I'm assuming everybody accustomed. Now, I know you guys, most everybody finishes 4 o'clock, 3:30, right? Some people tell me they finish like 4:30, so I can adjust so that you want to grab a bite, you want to hang out after school for a little bit. Obviously, pray us, we can do that, inshallah, okay? Is that okay with everybody? All right, excellent. Second, so I'll get a quick rundown. Sorry, how are you doing this out? So we're gonna. I didn't finish attention last week, so there's some techniques in attention that I really want to just get out the way because I think they're important for the concept of gaining attention when you're communicating. Then we'll go into presentations. I asked everybody to do 3 or 4 minutes about a social justice cause that they were really passionate about and to influence us into caring and being passionate about it. Then we'll go into the science of influence and the techniques of influence from the research and stuff that we have. Then we'll have, inshallah, a little activity at the end regarding influence. Today we're going to focus on the science of influence. What moves people, inshallah. Any questions before we start? All right, great. All right, so what do you guys remember from last time? Really quickly. So we started discussing the concept of influence, and we mentioned that influence, you cannot have it without attention. So attention is really important. What is attention? Does anybody remember what we discussed? Quickly?
In terms of like
any parts?
attention.
Oh, I know.
So we say the first part. They start with the self. Yes.
When you're talking about attention, you said that attention plus memory equals influence.
Right. So we're going to talk about that triangle today. That is a triangle that a leadership person, actually a person that wrote the book Power and Influence, he calls it the triangle of leadership. Power, influence, and attention. Communication, attention, and influence. We're going to discuss that a little bit today. But yes, so attention is essential for influence. Absolutely, 100%. Yes?
Under attention, you had building confidence.
Good. So first it started with confidence, right? So it starts with yourself. So confidence is, and we talked about the importance of confidence and some of the elements of confidence. I know, so I apologize. The upload took a while last night. I was doing a million things. Both links will get sent today, inshallah. But we talked about confidence and how uncertainty, the mind, creates false fears. We talked about the elements that bring anxiety or nervousness and how you can kind of get rid of them. Basic techniques, we're going to go into them a little bit more detail today, okay? And then we talked about the subconscious body positions that affect. So we talked about acting like you own it, right?
Connection.
Acting like a leader, right? Come into the room or the meeting or standing in front of people, you have to come in with that body language, right? So we emphasized on body language a little bit. We watched Amy Cuddy's TED Talk that I sent out. I don't know if you guys watched it. All about power postures, all about how to maximize not just the impact on other people, but the way you shape, the way you stand, it affects you, yourself, right, first. And she made that point of emphasis. So we emphasized on that point a little bit about feeling like you belong and leading. And then we talked about filler words. I wanted to do an activity with filler words last time, but we got cut really short on time. But Any unnecessary words, they call them filler words, that are used, they divert or reduce attention, right? So if somebody comes up and they want to give a message to influence somebody, but they're right? And we talked about that. So if we have time today, I'm gonna do the activity under that, okay? So let me focus on things that are research says that are, just to finish attention very quickly, things that research says that really affects attention. So number one, when divided attention occurs, so when there's focus on multiple things, right? So you never want anything that is taking your eyes away from you when you're in a meeting, in a presentation, in a talk, right? In a video. You never want people focusing too much on your clothes. You never want people focusing on your shoes, different things like that. So when you want people to focus on the message, you don't want anything that diverts attention, right? So that's focus. Also, words that are, sometimes if a word is used too often, or if a phrase is repeated too many times, other than filler words, what happens to somebody? They automatically say, like if a word is used too many times, or a phrase is used too many times, right, so if a word is used too many times, or a phrase is used, people will automatically say, wait, he just said if a word is used too many times, or a phrase is used too many times, that they start thinking like, oh my God, do they know they're repeating themselves? So what do they start focusing on?
What you're gonna say.
They start focusing on you, like, are you alright? Is everything okay? Instead of what? Again, attention, the power of the message comes from attention. If you divert attention, you gotta do something, right? So your own words can divert attention. And by the way, at the same time, similarly, you have to bring words to foresight, and we'll talk about that a little bit, persuasion today, or influence. Words that you say can bring people to an area that you want them to. So you have to understand, for example, if I tell everybody, I want you to remember the first time you ever went to the bathroom on yourself when you were in first grade. Everybody in the room automatically went back to first grade, right? So if I took you to first grade, now I can describe to you a scene or a message that I'm trying to describe about a first grader's life, for example, right? That's a better way of focusing somebody, right? So when you mention things, like if I say the word red, everybody thinks red. Nobody thought of yellow, right? So there are techniques also to bring the consciousness of a person to the forefront. You say a term, a phrase, or something to get them to where you want to go. But, so again, it's a part of gaining attention. But if you do that without actually realizing that they went somewhere and you needed to do something, it's kind of, they'll drift off. You might still be thinking about the first grade. What happened to me? And I was so sad and crying, and what did my dad do? You know, oh my God, he came late, and right? They drifted off away from you. Does that make sense? You don't want the mind to drift off. So that's a very, very important part of attention that researchers mention. And last one, at least the ones that I can focus on, we'll come back to a lot of these later on. Research is really clear that your message, and I know I'm trying to do this before you guys get up here and do your thing. Your message at the end of the day has three main areas that people, attention automatically goes to by default. So there's three areas, right? All research tells us this. It's three main areas, and that's why they say, any basic 101 will probably tell you, you focus on these three areas to master in your talk, a meeting, anytime you're talking. There's three main areas. What are the three areas? Anybody know? Definitely the introduction, of course. Second, so if you're going to focus on practicing this part of your speech more than any other speech, like mastering this part of your presentation more than anything else, there are three areas. The first is your introduction. Obviously, that's the first impression. The second is, most important thing to practice?
Content?
No. Content, of course, all content. A little bit more areas of the speech. What would you think?
Like the main points?
Yes and no. Obviously, one part should be clear. If there's an introduction that's people remember very clearly, what is the ending, for sure, right? The ending is, without a doubt, much more, research is obviously much more clear that the last thing people hear is the thing that they'll remember the most, right? So the end of class, the end of the talk, the end of the speech, that's the thing that they'll obviously will gravitate to their memory bank the first thing. right? And then the last thing they say is the parts that are most complex to you. The parts that are most complex to you is what you should spend most of your time practicing, right? To have an effective speech. So it could be parts that are transitions, graphs, data, right? So it's very, very important. So obviously the beginning is primacy, that audience remembers the first thing that it hears. Then complexity can throw somebody off. So your transitions, if you're having a hard time, or if you know they're difficult or it's hard for people to stay with you, so you should practice your transitions or complex thoughts a lot more than the rest of your speech, right? If you're going to focus only on, like, give all your all on one area, so your transitions are really important. We talked about a little bit last time that transitions are where people can get stuck and lose people's attention too, right? When you don't have good transitions. So people get lost, people don't understand what's going on. You have to have a good transition from one segment to the next. And then obviously the last one is recency bias, okay? We'll talk about some of the other techniques in attention. We're going to come back to a lot of points about the audience, about connections, inshallah. It'll come, bidhnillah. But I just wanted to get that out of the way in the beginning. Okay? Any questions? Anything not clear? Okay, cool. All right, so today we mentioned that we're going to individually record everybody, get a baseline for where their speech is now, and where their speech will be, inshallah, in the next 5 sessions. I didn't give you guys a lot of structure or anything on purpose. You wanted you guys to try to formulate. We'll learn about structure, we'll learn about formulating a message, but inshallah, we're just trying to get where everybody's at in terms of a prepared speech, if you will, okay? So social justice causes for today that you are really passionate about, that you want everybody to be passionate about as well, all right? That was the project, all right? So I'll do individual clips, inshallah. Is there any other questions? Everybody ready?
Yeah, can I get my food?
Yes, you can get your food. Sure. All right. So I'm gonna pause the recording and record everybody inshallah.